The Vancouver Canucks are cooking something pretty bizarre right now as they make a move that no one saw coming as Patrick Allvin's out here doing side quests, bringing back the rights for Vitali Kravtsov on a two-way deal as new head coach Adam Foote is looking to right the ship after a tumultuous last season. This signing signifies multiple things for the Vancouver Canucks as Kravtsov was an absolute stud in the KHL, being one of the top scorers in the league. But there are some very interesting wrinkles to this aspect that just makes this a little bit bizarre for the Vancouver Canucks. We have to dive into the roster, the Kravtsov signing, what his numbers look like in the KHL, and how this is going to impact the Vancouver Canucks this season. A bunch of crazy stuff coming up in this episode of Hat Trick HQ, and you know what? Let's just start it here. Cam Robinson was the first one I saw to tweet this out. Maybe there was someone else, but look, I'll give credit to Cam. I like elite prospects. Vitali Kravtsov is heading back to North America on a one-year, two-way deal with the Canucks. The 25-year-old was 6th in the KHL, scoring last season with 27 goals, 58 points in 66 games with Tractor. And look, if you look at Kravtsov's numbers, look at these. They're pretty great since he left the NHL. Of course, he came over from the Rangers in a trade that, look, there was basically nothing going for Kravtsov coming back. Sorry to the, I think, like a 7th round pick and another guy who I don't think's broken into the NHL. Regardless, Kravtsov comes in as a guy who has scored 6 career NHL goals in 64 career NHL games. But one thing that he did great was go to the KHL and prove himself because he's always had that high upside. He was the 9th overall pick, for goodness sakes, all the way back in 2018. And he put up some decent numbers in the KHL. Again, that 16 goals in 49 games before coming over and playing 20 games with the New York Rangers back in 2020-2021. He's always had that high offensive upside. He is a winger, has only played wing at the NHL level, but when he was drafted and even now, he can kind of play all 3 forward positions. And he went back to the KHL, I guess, figure things out because, look, he didn't want to get sent down to the AHL when he was over here, when Vancouver still had his rights, which I guess they still do have, but when he was on the actual roster, he didn't want to go to the AHL. He felt he was better than that. I remember there being like a bit of a kerfuffle. Is that the right word? I'd say that's the right word, around that whole situation, which is what makes this signing even more bizarre. Like I said, Patrick Allvin's doing side quests. Just like, my reaction to this was just, what? Really? I mean, look, it's not necessarily a bad thing. I'll get into that stuff in a second. Wrong pictures. But like looking at this roster, I wonder what place he takes because it is a two-way deal. And for those of you unfamiliar with two-way deals, I know in basketball, a two-way deal means you can freely move up and down between the NBA and the G League. But in hockey, a two-way deal just means you get paid different depending where you're playing. Like a one-way deal just means it's just for payment. It doesn't mean he's free to be sent up and down, anything like that. Kravtsov's on a two-way deal, so if he gets sent to the AHL, if he doesn't crack this roster, which, let's be honest, whose spot is he taking? Is he taking Kiefer Sherwood's? I sure hope not. That guy went a monster season for Kiefer Sherwood standards. A bargain of a deal at 1.5 mil, if you ask me. Could it be Max Sasson? Could it be one of these other guys that might take a roster spot? I don't know. I think Aatu Ratu's pretty much locked in there as their 4C. Maybe he could even move up. I think there's a good ceiling for Aatu Ratu. But regardless, I don't see Kravtsov taking a roster spot. However, the numbers are hard to deny. 58 points in 66 games. Again, that landed him 6th in the whole KHL. And of these top 6 scorers, he had more goals than Maxim Shabanov, who was there at 3rd. Like, the thing with Kravtsov is he is very, very, very talented. And he's big. He just hasn't been able to make it work at the NHL level. He even had a season previous in the NHL where he was hitting. But again, this is why this feels bizarre to me. Because if I just circle back, like, correct me if I'm wrong, Canucks fans, but there has been some weird stuff with him where, like, there was talk of shipping him out for basically nothing, like rights to a late round pick, because he just wasn't really working out, right? Again, like the play wasn't there. He didn't really want to go to the AHL, and guess what? He never did. He never set foot in the AHL, minus back in 2019-20 with the Hartford Wolfpack. But in recent years, when he's been in the NHL, it's been like, listen, buddy, maybe you should go there. Again, 44 games this past year split between New York and Canucks. Sorry, 2 years ago, I should say, before heading back to Russia. It's like, man, I don't know. 3 years ago, I guess, is that now? Well, it depends how you look at it. But regardless, it's like, if he doesn't crack this lineup, I keep bringing up the wrong picture. I promise I'll get to that. What is the plan here? Because I can't say, unless Vitali Kravtsov has matured enough to say, listen, I understand, I'm signing a two-way deal, I just want my shot in the NHL again, and if you send me to Abbotsford, that's okay, I'll take a pay cut. It's not just a Kravtsov thing, it's more of just a KHL player thing. How often do you see KHL players come over, especially ones that have been in the NHL, which is not that common? I mean, it does happen, but kind of strange for them to come back over to only likely be sent to the AHL, unless he has an unbelievable camp. I don't even see him going to the AHL. I don't know if this is a hot take. I don't even know if this is even possible, but I'm pretty sure it is. I think he can choose to do whatever he wants. If he doesn't make the NHL, I wouldn't be shocked to see him go back over to Russia. This seems to be a very interesting move for Vancouver, but it is kind of low risk because of a few aspects. If he comes over and he looks amazing right away, he comes into training camp and he is showing up doing some amazing stuff. Like, Alvin was very happy with his performance there. Said Vitali had a strong season in the KHL and was an impact player for his team. In his 2 seasons in Russia, he has worked hard on his game, and we look forward to seeing where Vitali's at when he comes into training camp in Penticton. And I think that's very fair, right? Like, if his game has evolved, if he shows a bit of defensive upside and he can adapt to like a bottom 6 role while still giving that scoring upside, hey, I think it could be great. The thing with Kravtsov is he kind of needs the puck on his stick to create a lot of opportunities, and I just wonder if that's going to be there in the Canucks bottom 6. There's still a lot of skill there, but you never know. Like, it's again a low risk, high upside move if he does impress in camp. There are issues to that, though, of course, as Mark Henry at Double Prospect said. In true Kravtsov fashion, his playoff totals were not near as impressive, where he had only 7 points in 19 games with Tractor Chelyabinsk. A trend that continues with Kravtsov is the lack of consistency. If he were to make an NHL comeback, he would have to adapt his game to a bottom 6 role, and I think that's very fair. But again, like, boom or bust move. Like, why not? If he decides to go back to the KHL, fine, right? If he gets time in the NHL, that is the best case scenario. I know there was talk of moving his rights for nothing, but if he's willing to come back, why not give it a shot? And if he is really good for the Vancouver Canucks, there's an extra aspect to this where I'm going to talk about the pictures that I accidentally brought up earlier. He's a Group 6 UFA. So, to put this simply, Vitali Kravtsov, if you're 25 or older, like, you typically have your RFA status. If you haven't played that much in the NHL, if you don't come in at like 18, you'll have it till you're about 26 years old. Kravtsov, as you can see here, is 25 years old and won't be 26 till mid-December. So he would normally be an RFA. The thing is, he has not played enough games to keep his RFA status. So to be Group 6 UFA eligible, you have to have played less than 80 games in the NHL. And Kravtsov, well, guess what? You can see here by this list of sorted by total NHL games played, he's played 64 games, and he has 16 games left to remain an RFA. So, if he comes in and plays really well for Vancouver, which is a possibility, do I think it's likely? Not really. I think this is an insane situation. Like, I don't know. Maybe I'm more caught off guard by this than I think other people. I don't think it's bad. Let me make that clear. I just think it's crazy. If he comes in and he performs great, he comes into this lineup, he finds a spot, or he's happy playing in Vancouver, and the Canucks are like, okay, you know what? I actually like what you're bringing this team. If he plays at least 16 games this season, which, mind you, in every NHL season he has played in, he has played at least 16 games, 20 games in 2020, 2021, and then 44 games in 22, 23. I know it's a small sample size. I know me saying that kind of doesn't mean much. But again, if he hits that 16-game mark, he will actually stay an RFA instead of being a UFA after this season, where, again, he might just leave anyway. But, again, it's just kind of a low-risk move. If he pans out, you actually keep his RFA status if he plays enough for you, and you got him on a 2-way deal that's probably not a lot of money, right? He's coming in and he has that high upside of a 9th overall draft pick that just hasn't had it work at the NHL level. He brings some size at 6'3", and if he shows some hustle, if he shows even a bit of consistency, maybe on the defensive side of the puck, maybe he'll have to ask on that front, I think he could be a reasonable fit. Use the body a bit more. I don't know. I don't think this is going to end up with Kravtsov having that ceiling like I'm saying here. It's a low-risk move, but it's just bizarre. I don't think I saw this coming at all. It's weird that he's back with the Canucks when there was talks about trading him for the rights to just like some later-round draft pick, but at the same time, it's a really interesting move, and I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. What is cooking in Vancouver? What is Alvin up to? It's been a very interesting offseason thus far. Again, you got a lot of very interesting names here. You got Besser, who's coming back. Yeah, actually, I wonder what number, now that I think about it, Kravtsov's going to wear. I think he wore 74 in Russia. DeBrusk has that. And I think before he wore 91, right? And now Kane has that. So I don't know what number he's going to wear. But leave your thoughts down below, because that'll do it for this episode of Hat Trick HQ. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you for tuning in all off season long for all your favorite NHL teams. I've been your host, Josh Gosse, and I'll catch you in the next one.